Something happened today that you didn't see, but you felt it. A weight lifted, or maybe a door quietly closed, or maybe you just had this strange sense that something around you shifted. I need you to pay attention right now, because heaven just removed someone from your life, and by the time this video ends, you're going to understand exactly why. This isn't about fear. This isn't about looking over your shoulder wondering who it was. This is about recognizing that God protects you in ways you never get to witness. And tonight, one of those ways is about to make sense. Let's start here. Not every door that closes is a loss. Some closed doors are actually rescues. Think about Lot's wife for a moment, standing at the edge of Sodom, being told not to look back, not to hold on to what was being left behind. The instruction wasn't cruel, it was protective. What was behind her would have destroyed her if she'd stayed tethered to it. Sometimes the hardest mercy God gives us is the removal of something or someone we didn't have the strength to walk away from ourselves. That's what's happening in your life right now, whether you've noticed it yet or not. There are people who walk into our lives for a season, and we mistake the season for permanence. We build plans around them. We shape our decisions to keep them close. And when God removes them quietly, without a dramatic explanation, it feels like abandonment. But Proverbs 3 says, "Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." Straight paths sometimes require the removal of a person who was quietly bending your path in the wrong direction. I want you to think about David for a second and his relationship with Saul. For years, David served Saul faithfully. He played music to calm Saul's troubled mind. He fought battles under Saul's command. He genuinely loved and honored him. But Saul's presence in David's life eventually became something dangerous. Jealousy turned to threats. Threats turned to attempts on David's life. And God, through circumstances David didn't orchestrate himself, began separating David from Saul's orbit, piece by piece, until David was fully out from under an influence that would have killed him had he stayed. David didn't ask for that separation. He didn't engineer it. It happened around him, through him, sometimes without his full understanding in the moment. That's often how removal works. It doesn't always come with a conversation. Sometimes it just comes with distance, an ending, a quiet fading, and you don't get the full picture until much later. So who was removed from your life? Maybe it was someone who left on their own, and it still stings even now. Maybe it's a relationship that quietly cooled off for no clear reason. Maybe it's a friendship that used to feel close and now feels distant, and you can't explain when that happened. Maybe it's someone who hasn't physically left yet, but you feel the shift already starting. Here is the truth I want to plant in you tonight. Not everyone who was meant to walk beside you for a while was meant to walk beside you forever. And letting go of someone doesn't always mean you did something wrong or they did something wrong. Sometimes it simply means that chapter served its purpose and closed exactly when it needed to. Ecclesiastes 3 says there is a time for everything, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to embrace and a time to refrain. Relationships have appointed seasons too, even the ones we love deeply, even the ones that felt like they'd last forever. Now let's talk about why this removal matters for what's coming next in your life. Because this is where it gets important. Some people occupy space in your life that's meant for someone or something else. Not because they're bad people, but because their presence, their opinions, their patterns are quietly shaping decisions that don't align with where you're actually headed. You might not have even realized how much weight their voice carried until it got quiet. Think about how Abraham was told to leave his country, his people, and his father's household in Genesis 12. Not because those people were evil. Just because staying connected to them would have kept him rooted in the old identity instead of the new one God was calling him into. Sometimes the exact same is true for you. Someone had to be at a distance for you to hear your own voice clearly again, for you to make decisions based on your purpose instead of their expectations. If someone left your life recently and it's confused you, consider that maybe it wasn't a punishment. Maybe it was space being made. Isaiah 43:19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" New things require room. And sometimes, the room gets made by removing what was taking up the space. Let's talk about the emotional part of this too, because I'm not going to pretend removal doesn't hurt. It does. Even when it's for your good, even when you'll thank God for it later, right now it can feel like grief. And that's allowed. Faith doesn't require you to pretend a loss doesn't hurt. Even Jesus wept at Lazarus's tomb, knowing full well he was about to raise him from the dead minutes later. Knowing the good outcome doesn't erase the real emotion in the moment. So if you're grieving someone tonight, whether they died or walked away or simply faded out of your daily life, you're allowed to feel that fully while still trusting there's a reason behind it. Here's something practical for tonight. Instead of asking, "Why did this person leave?" ask, "What am I free to become now that they're not here?" That question changes everything. It moves you from mourning what's gone to noticing what's now possible. Maybe you're free to make a decision you were too influenced to make before. Maybe you're free to hear your own convictions instead of an echo of theirs. Maybe you're free from a pattern of comparison or competition or constant approval seeking that you didn't even realize was draining you. Let's go back to Naomi and Ruth for a moment, because their story shows both sides of this. Naomi lost her husband and both her sons, devastating losses that reshaped her entire life. But it was in the aftermath of that loss that Ruth's loyalty and faith became the very thing that repositioned Naomi's family line, eventually leading to Ruth marrying Boaz and becoming part of the lineage of King David himself. The removal, painful as it was, cleared the ground for a redemption story neither of them could have written on their own. You don't get to see the whole redemption arc while you're standing in the loss. Naomi didn't know, in the middle of her grief, that her family's story was about to become one of the most important lineages in Scripture. She just knew she was hurting. That's often exactly where you are tonight, in the part of the story where you can't see the redemption yet, only the absence. But Romans 8:28 still holds. All things work together for good for those who love God, for those called according to his purpose. Not all things feel good. Not all things make sense immediately. But they are working. Even the removals, even the endings, even the people who quietly disappeared from your life without explanation. Here's what I want you to do tonight. Before you go to sleep, say this quietly to yourself. Whoever was removed for a reason I may not understand yet, and I trust that the space being made is for something better than what I lost. Say it, even if it feels hard to believe right now. Especially if it feels hard to believe right now, because faith is often strongest exactly in the moments it's hardest to hold on to. If tonight's message found you at the right moment, and I believe it did, share it with someone who's also grieving a person, a friendship, or a season that recently ended. They need to hear that the removal isn't the whole story. It's just the part before the redemption becomes visible. You weren't abandoned tonight. You were protected. And soon, you'll understand exactly why.